Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Foster Friendly Podcast. My name is Courtney Williams and I'm joined by my co-host Travis Vangsnes. And today we have something kind of fun, something new that we haven't done before, talking to a screenwriter and film producer. Our guest today is Erin Dooley. She is an award-winning screenwriter and filmmaker. Her scripts often deal with themes of faith, forgiveness, and family. Erin has produced an audio sitcom podcast, 2 feature films, numerous short films, and web series. She's a former foster mom, now foster care advocate, and her latest short film, Adopting Faith, is an important film that really is an impact in the foster care community and adoption community. She is using it to educate the public on foster care and adoption and other ways that other people can get involved and help foster youth. So welcome today, Erin.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, really good to have you. So before we jump more into sort of some of the stuff we're going to talk about in this podcast, just tell us a little bit about how you got into film and what's been that journey like so far.
Yeah, it's been about, I think, 20 years since I first started writing. It was right around this time I was waiting to get picked up to go to my cousin's wedding, and I had this story that would just not leave my head, and I was like, all right, I've got a little bit of time, I'm just going to write it down, naively thinking that, oh, then it'll all be over and I'll just stop thinking of this story. But that just opened Pandora's box. I didn't realize that the next idea is going to come right away as soon as you put pen to paper on the first one. So that basically started me on my writing journey. And so I originally from the suburbs of Chicago and did some most of my stuff in the early days was, of course, out there, and started writing and then working on other people's projects as well to just get, used to all the different facets of filmmaking. And I made my first feature film. I kind of dove into the deep end and did a 2-hour musical with 26 songs and 12 lead casts. So it was a lot. But I think you do that when you're new and naive and you're like, oh, how hard can this be? But you wouldn't do that if you knew how hard it was going to be.
Everything downhill from there, kind of.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I can do all this stuff. So, yeah. So and then about 10 years ago, I moved out to LA to chase the dream. And I've been out here and writing and working, also worked on other people's projects at the beginning, but then more started to focus on my own. Because I just kept hearing when you're out here, you can fall into making other people's dreams come true, and then you look back at your life, you're like, wait a second, this isn't what I came out here for. So that's really sort of stuck with me on making sure that I am telling the stories that I want to tell. And for me, it is, like stories about faith, family, and forgiveness, the good F words, as I say. To try to make an impact. I'm like, there's always, there's plenty of popcorn movies out there, but for me, I want to entertain, but also just leave people something to think about after they see something of mine.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I love the good F words. So let's dive in a little bit into kind of how this evolved into this current film, this latest one. But so you were a volunteer before becoming a foster parent. Tell us a little bit about that and what you did and kind of how that led you into fostering.
Yeah, I don't have any biological children, but then I just felt this nudge. For me, I am a person of faith, so for me, I felt like it was coming from God. Other people might, attribute it to something else, but I just felt like, okay, there's something calling me to help foster kids, but I wasn't sure what to do, and I'm single, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do it all on my own. And so I was just thinking about it, and so then I looked to see what organizations there are, and I'm in LA, and so there are a lot of organizations that help in many different facets. And so first I found an organization. It is the children live in cottages at a residential facility. And so I worked monthly to help at events there. And but I really didn't feel like I could connect that much with an individual kid because we just kind of breezed in, held these events for like 2 hours, and then we were gone. I mean, the most that I ever connected was actually we were playing bingo one day, and I noticed that there was a boy who's deaf, and he was, struggling to kind of know what was happening. And I learned the alphabet and ASL as a kid, and so I sat next to him, and I at least could tell him, help him play his card. But then he thought I knew a lot more ASL than I do. So then
Uh,
but that was like the most I actually connected with any of the children there. So then after a year of that, I thought, well, I'd like to do something a bit more. And I found an organization that you can be a mentor for somebody who has aged out, or they may have been reunified, but they're an adult now, they're over 19, and they're trying to live independently. And you just walk alongside them to help them because, of course, any of us, even if we were, raised by our biological families, it's like at 18, did any of us know how to navigate life? So it was to help her. Like the gal that I helped, she was living in a hotel, and so trying to get her on housing lists and things like that. But did that for a year and realized, okay, I felt like I could have just done more if I had somebody earlier in the stage. And so then that I thought, well, I guess all that's left is to foster. So I went and I got certified, and I had a teenage girl for 14 months with me. And yeah, it was a blessing. She's a lovely gal. We're still in touch. She just graduated high school. She's going off to college in the fall. So we still have that connection. So that's my foster journey.
That's beautiful. I love it. And really focusing on those teenagers, as we know that that's often the biggest
Yeah,
need. So awesome that you were willing to jump in to a
yeah,
teenager.
yeah. My whole
yeah.
life, I've worked. Well, I don't know my whole life, but I've worked a lot with kids. And like I helped out with the young adult group at my church, and so teenagers was always where my I sort of resonated a little bit better. Like, yeah, so it's like, yeah, I can't change diapers. I'd even like change my nieces and nephews' diapers. That
Right.
was, yeah, yeah. There was one Mother's Day when my nephew was, still in diapers, and my sister-in-law was like, "Oh, it's Mother's Day. Like, you should give me a break." I was like, "You married my brother, not me. He can do the diapers." So,
Step it up.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
but
That's great.
Right.
Yeah, well, too, like I love kind of your intro in setting this up of just, in your own story of the diversity of ways, one can engage the space, which we'll talk more about. But also like, I want to highlight too, I love what you said as you kicked it off, as you were volunteering at the children's home of like, walking that space of even a place, the ASL background or whatever you had, you'll never know what kind of gifts or experiences we bring prior that like people see this all the time where as they're fostering or engaging these kids in some way that like you lean on that or you're surprised of, oh my gosh, we have this connection. So
yeah,
yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. Well, and you're someone that's really lived this out, through the different ways you have engaged this. So that really sets up the credibility for where we're going next in your short film. So you have a short film called Adopting Faith, where you lean into some of your experience and I'm sure with friends and other, ways you gain feedback on that film. Tell us more about it, how it came to be, and just bring us into that story.
yeah. I wrote it while I was still discerning the ways that I would help, and so I think I may have been working at the or volunteering at the group home at the point that I wrote it. And I wrote it for a contest, and you work with a mentor and get feedback on it. And so I placed fairly high in the contest, and then it just sort of sat in my hard drive for a while. And then after I was done fostering, then I was like, okay. As a single person, I was like, okay, I don't think I can do fostering again on my own. So I just pivoted to then being an advocate. And I was like, well, I have this short, let's see. And while I was fostering, I made a friend through one of the support groups, and she adopted her daughter out of care. And so I said, can you please read this? Because, I haven't done the adoption route. So I just want to make sure that it's not too like syrupy sweet, but it also isn't too harsh. Like, is it real? And so she read it, and I was like, please, like, I have pretty thick skin with my writing, tell me, because I want it to resonate with people. I'd rather have the harsher feedback now and fix it, and then the audiences get the better product. So she read it and was like, no, I think it strikes that balance in between, still giving a glimpse of what could happen, with children who have experienced some traumas, but without going, it's not a movie of the week where you're going to go full on in and all of that. So I felt pretty good after she, gave me that feedback. And so we shot it earlier this year. We had to delay because of the LA wildfires. Where we were supposed to film was being evacuated, so we delayed that. But yeah, and it's been great to get feedback from different foster organizations that have viewed it to say, oh, just to see their eyes light up, and I can see the wheels spinning of how can we use this? Because I made it for everybody to be able to use, and if foster organizations find some use for it within their organization, then I'm happy for them to use it, as obviously as long as they give me credit that I made it. But other than that, they're free to use it. So yeah, that was
yeah, thanks for sharing on that.
Yeah, I was able to view the film. I've actually watched it a couple times now, and I just really resonated with it. And the fact of we adopted one of our children, a few of our children, but one of our children through foster care at an older age. She was 15 when she came to us, and it was very similar to our journey in the trying to push away, not really trusting and believing we're going to stick around, and then eventually we did have that come around point. Not that it was easy, not that it was all solved, but we had that moment where it was like, okay, we're in this together. We've got this. It's going to be hard, but we can do this. And I really felt that with the film. Like, it was very realistic to what it's very much like. And it's hard for people to understand who aren't in the realm of foster care or adoption to understand what it's really like. And I think things like this give a little glimpse for other people to understand. So for me personally, like, I'd use it more like I want my friends and family to watch this, to know like, this is part of our journey. This is part of what our home is like, and ways that they can support us or understand our home a little bit more.
Yeah, because they only see the outside when you're out at events or different things, and people are like, oh, I've just read a lot of on different foster websites and things that from the outside, it's like, oh, I could never do that. You're a hero. It's like, no, I'm just somebody that stepped up and did this, and it's hard. And to kind of peel back that curtain a little bit and be like, okay, this is what it's a little bit like, so you can understand. So if I ask for some help, or just so you can maybe offer, now that you've seen what a glimpse of what it's like. So I'm happy that it resonated with you.
Yeah.
Well, and Courtney, I mean, how many kids have you fostered through the last decade?
Over 70 now.
So if you're getting an endorsement from Courtney on the realness of it, I mean, that's
thank you. Oh,
yeah. And I had watched it too, and I love the moments of just the gritty real of kind of some of those relational, like, turf wars of, okay, are you here for me? Are you really here for me? And kind of just some of the behavior stuff. They're just real. I mean, kids are coming from trauma and hard places. So yeah, you really portrayed that well. And then it was inspiring as well.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of the key takeaways that you really hope viewers get from this film? Things for them to understand, kind of like we've been talking about, but what are some things that you've been hoping that people get from it?
I think that it's just the approachability, I hope, because here's a woman, and I'm not spoiling anything for people that haven't watched it yet, but we open with her, and she has made this decision to foster, and then her husband has just passed away, and can I do this on my own? And I think that just that question of like, can I do this, is a lot of people, if somebody were to ask them, oh, have you ever thought about fostering? Just that question of, can I do this? Would be resonating with anybody. We all ask ourselves, like, am I really up to that task? And so I'm hoping that it would just open the door for people to consider that question of, can I do this? And even though this story does focus on adoption, as we all know, that's only like a quarter of the children will not be able to be reunified. And so 75% it will be, that is the purpose, of course, of fostering. So I don't want it. It's been interesting to write a message, because it's like, it is about adoption, but that's not all I want people to go in this for. I want them to, and then, as we said earlier, beyond all the different ways, because everybody can't bring a child into their home, but they could do other things. And so through these film and foster fairs that I'm having, we had one in LA, and we're going to be having one in Colorado and other states, where people come, they watch the film, and then I invite area foster organizations to share the ways that they can help. And I'm specifically telling these foster organizations, and I'm searching out all the different ones that do, all the various things, to say, please, do not just focus on that they can foster. There's plenty of places in each city that, with agencies and such. I would like for you to highlight other ways so that people can say, okay, I can't do that, but I can do this. And so really just trying to open that message, because I mean, for me, being a single person, never having parented before, and I was like, oh, and you can know something in your mind, but then when you actually live it, you're like, oh, wow, like my world is just these four walls now, and this child, this stranger who's placed in my home. And I'm not somebody that is big. I know it might sound silly to people, but it became a bigger thing for me because I don't like to cook. I don't care about food. For me, food is fuel. I don't care. But when you get a teenager, they can talk back and they can express their opinion. And day 2, she was like, we need better food. Like, I don't eat this. And she didn't mean better tasting. It was because it was a lot of, easy meals. And she was like, we need fresh food. So then I was like, oh man, I got to cook every night, like from scratch. So even just if people decide, oh, we're going to, in our community, design meal trains for, new foster families, so that as they're getting their children out to, all these appointments that they have to do right at the beginning, and just trying to bond as a family, like that thing could be taken care of. So just trying to open up people's minds of different ways that might not be a traditional way of when you think of fostering, because I'm sure, Courtney, even all these years, when you bring it up, people, they just don't think about it until you say, oh, wow, yeah, I'm fostered. And then people start talking and they think it's very binary. Like, I can do this thing or I can't. And I'm like, there's so much in between. There's so many ways. So that's the broader goal of what I'm trying to open up.
Wonderful that you just shared that. And I got to just share this little story because this is like right now, I mean, literally as we're sitting here talking, I don't like sit and watch my phone, but I've got a lot of kids. I got to kind of make sure there's not like SOS going on. And so I peeked down and it's a friend that was over at my house last night. And she's saying, are you home this morning? Can I drop off coffee for you? But she was in my home last night and she saw we have 2 brand new kiddos in our care. One's a 5-year-old nonverbal autistic kiddo who we're just all over, just watching all over the place. And then a 21-month-old. And had she not been in my home last night, I don't think she would have even realized, like, oh, this is what Courtney's day-to-day is like right now.
Right.
And then for her to send me this message to say, can I bring you coffee? And I think, again, that's just what this film does. And even the film, if you haven't seen it, you should see this film, Sound of Hope. Because I feel like that's another thing, like films like this that get people to see, like, yeah, it's great if you can step up and foster or adopt. But like really, like you're saying, like we need people to come alongside these families and see, like, bringing them a coffee, that makes my day.
Yeah.
My husband's out of town. Like it's meaningful to me. Bringing over a meal, helping with laundry, any of those things that can support foster families, the biological families, it really does make a difference. I love that you're highlighting that and talking about that.
Yeah. It takes a village, as they say, right?
Well, and we're not done highlighting that. Yeah. So it's actually, I like, kind of in the course of this conversation, we're going to kind of keep sprinkling that in, I think, is what we're going to do, because we're coming back to that again. But as we kind of continue on with the film, looking at that, I mean, curious, were any of the actors or any of the people involved on the set had experience with foster care or any of that?
Yeah, actually, once we were on set, and I obviously know my experience, and one of the actresses, she adopted, not out of care, but she did adopt her daughter. And then I started just asking people, and 2/3 of people, and I didn't, hire only people that had experience, but 2/3 of the cast and crew had some connection directly with either foster care or adoption in general. And so it just goes to show that, you meet somebody, you have no idea their story and what their connection might be to care. And as I've talked more to people, I'll just be saying, oh, I have this movie. And they're like, oh yeah, I used to foster, or I did this. And it's like, it's just, it's it's interesting how many people do have a connection, and it was 2/3 of people have yeah yeah
That is wild. Yeah, I don't get that as often. So, oftentimes people are like, "Oh, I don't know anything about that," or they'll,
yeah
what they
yeah
know is like from movies or from other
right
things they
yeah
don't have.
yeah it was more like leaning towards like adoption, but at least like that idea of um some sort of blended or non-traditional, so to speak, family. And so I think that if people have that in their head, it might maybe opens their minds a little bit more. They're more easy to understand, like, oh yeah, like you can love a child that isn't yours. Because and actually when I very, very first had felt this nudge, my brother came into town, and so we went out with one of his friends who I had met before, and that man's wife, and they had just adopted. It was still in the early. It was like the month where the biological mother could still reclaim, her rights, and so I'm holding this baby, and like the cutest baby in the world, right? And just I was like, wow, like I don't know, it just hit me like, they're adopting, and I just already also felt like love for this baby. And it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, like in that moment, it solidified the idea that, um, yeah, people can absolutely like totally love a child that isn't theirs. Cause here I was like already feeling love for this baby that I wasn't even adopting. My brother's friend was, but, it's, yeah, so, it's of course different,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
many regards, but, yeah, so we can all, yeah, care for the
Hmm.
kids.
Yeah, great message there.
Right. So you've kind of already answered this, but I just want to hear more about your hopes for this film. Where do you hope to take it? What do you hope? Yeah, what are your hopes for, the next year or a few years with it?
Yeah, the main thrust is these film and foster fairs that I mentioned, and trying to get a grassroots effort with that, because I have a whole hosting kit to make it really turnkey, because I can't be flying around the country doing these all over the place. And so it has all of the emails that people need to send. They can just copy and paste. It has the press release they can copy and paste. It has images. All they have to do is put their date and their location, and bam, it's up and running. And so it's uh, whatever, it's like a 20-page document. I send them, and so if people are interested in that, and there's a video, if people need to hear things to make it, because I know people learn in different ways. So I was like, okay, I want to make a video and a PDF version of this instructions. And so that's available for people. I'm already in talks with some other communities. And then hopefully we did just get accepted into a film festival, and it's a shorts film festival here in LA, and there's going to be a short Q&A. So those audiences are, since they're just a wider spectrum of just your average man on the street, so to speak. I'm really happy to be getting into those, because then I can just expose people to this message, because with the film and foster fairs, a lot of them are in faith communities,
Hmm.
because that was just easier for me to dive into and have some connections. But it would be open to everybody. They're just the ones that are probably going to help plan, but anybody can. I'm not limiting to that. It's just the ones
Hmm.
that I've worked in establishing right now have that way. But and then of different foster organizations want to use it. The Dave Thomas Foundation, they said that they're going to email a link to it to their people.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I'm waiting to see that spike in my
Yeah.
YouTube video.
They're big. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully that still happens now that I've just put it out there. But I did give so I've been trying to make those connections. And um, I, I think it's interesting, because this film on YouTube, it's my fastest growing one. And I mean, it's the message, right? Because half of the people that are finding it, it's not me giving them the link, they're just finding it on YouTube. And so I think because of that, people get curious about foster care, which is great. And so, yeah, hopefully that'll just continue to grow, and it can just point people in directions. I have a page on my website with resources, some national ones, and then I have some California ones since I'm here, but just trying to be a little bit of a clearinghouse to keep reflecting people back, pushing them back into their communities, to say, just Google, like, you know, volunteering of foster kids in my county, and see what comes up. So yeah, just trying to just wherever people will play it to help educate people is, as big as it can be. That would be my dream. Yeah. Because it's not really, that's not, of all the films, you try to make it for yourself and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what is this gonna, and of course, if this opens doors for me in my filmmaking, all the better. But it really is, and I do keep coming back to that when I when I was first deciding even how to put it out there in the world. There are some platforms, um, that maybe you'll get some money, but they were smaller platforms, and I was like, but nobody's going to find it on those as readily as YouTube. And I was like, so I just keep coming back, like, why did you make this film? You made it to educate as many people and just expose as many people to the idea of foster care and foster care adoption. So um, it's a grounding sentiment for
Hmm.
me to be like, okay, this is why you made it. So just, it is your gift to the world to just keep being an
Mm-hmm.
advocate. So yeah, just hope that people share it once they find it with their, everybody that they know. So
Yeah.
Spread the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. 100%. And I actually, it's funny you kind of ended on that saying about, because I was just thinking that as you were talking about like how as a filmmaker, you've created something that you want to share. And of course, if it grows something in your business or what you're doing, of course that's a thing. But the fact in this case, it seems like you've already said, is there's this sense that you're also an ambassador to this space that um, maybe it's pushing you in a way to be even more courageous in the way that you're trying to share it to maybe even people that you wouldn't have, because you're stepping up for those that are in the margins. And that's one of the things that I find really inspiring of what you're doing. And that's also why it's really cool to have you on as a guest, because I'm really curious about the creative space for foster care. There's been some major films out there, and we've talked about that in other episodes, but people that are using their creative gift to, and it could be music or art or film, but in a way that like to illuminate the margins for these kids is incredibly needed. So yeah, well, thanks for just sharing all about the background and kind of the vision and everything around the film. Going back to what we keep sprinkling in about the sort of the wider space of getting engaged. America's Kids Belong, we call it the foster friendly movement. This is the foster friendly podcast, kind of like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood of foster care. Come meet all your neighbors. So we really dream to see the grassroots side of everyday people getting involved, in being educated and growing awareness. Part of what you're doing with this film, we've already talked some about this. You've shared your heart on it. But if you were to kind of bring that part to a close, of what words of encouragement, would you kind of give to listeners for getting involved?
What I've been saying at these fairs is that, not everybody, we all can't do everything, but everybody can do something. And so whether it is your friend just bringing you coffee, but that means the world, and these small moments do mean a lot. Friends that came and gave, watched my daughter, and so I could just have a little bit of a break, those small things. And so we can all choose to be involved. I was thinking about this morning before we got on, about what I think kids need. And it's just people choosing them. I mean, we all want to be chosen, whether it's our friends, choosing, like, oh, like, you're a great person, I want to be friends with you. Or, of course, then when we get married, that person choosing you, and these kids, for whatever reason that they end up in care, maybe they don't feel chosen. And so even if it is, we're just volunteering, or I shouldn't say just, even if that's what we can do, we're still choosing to engage with these children and step in as a caring adult, because we all need a lot of caring adults. I mean, we think back to all of our past, we might have had a coach, a teacher that was really impactful on us. And of course, our parents are our primary, but there's these other touch points that we have. And so I think that we can all choose to be a small touch point, a positive impact in some way to kids in care. And so I just open minds on ways that we can help the kids in care.
Well said.
Yeah. And I don't think, I can't think of anybody that I know that's ever helped in some capacity that hasn't said, wow, like that impacted me in my life.
But yeah.
what you give in will be brought back to you tenfold
Mm-hmm.
in the understanding, in the, understanding people, understanding the needs, understanding our communities, all of it. It just really is such a need.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways to get involved. So
Yeah, definitely. It has definitely brought a lot to my life to have done, to fostered for, even though I, only fostered one child, and, people like you, you've fostered so many, but even just that little taste of it, definitely has uh, illuminated me on, looking at how people's like, why do they, why are they doing that? From the trauma books that I read, and be like, that just broadens it for everybody that I come across, to be like, oh, people don't just do things, there's reasons. So, yeah, definitely has brought a lot to my life to have helped out in the ways that I can. And like you say, come back to me as a big blessing. And so I just want to keep, like, now it's just like the cycle of like, okay, I gave and then I was given. Well, now I'm going to keep giving, because so I just like this unending loop of care.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So you already answered this question, but just to sum it up again, how you would answer what kids in foster care really need is, and you said to be chosen, right?
People that choose to step in whatever way they can. Yeah.
It's one thing we try to teach our kids, we don't do it perfectly. They don't do it perfectly. We're all imperfect, but, going to the park, going to school, we go to quite a few events with other foster youth, and, looking for those kids that are sitting off by themselves, looking for those kids in your class who don't usually get picked for things. Like, if you're the captain, can you please just pick one of those kids first, make their day, make their year, and just always like that gift of being chosen and feeling belonging. It really makes a difference, again, especially for these kiddos who have often not felt that really ever in their lives.
Yeah,
I love that, Courtney. That really puts a bow tie on kind of the end of this episode in that way. And so really have appreciated having you on, Erin. What we're going to do is, in the show notes, we'll show a link, or share a link, for your film, Adopting Faith. And so definitely want to spread the word on that. And as you watch that, share that as well. Really impacted by that. And then also on our website at America's Kids Belong, we have various tabs. One of them is just how can you help? And you click on that and you'll see, the different avenues of getting engaged, caring for foster families, if you're a business or a faith community. And then we also have a tab called Become Foster Friendly, and where we talk more about the foster friendly app we have, the discounts that offers to foster families. And then again, just other ways, if you're a faith community or a business or an individual, you can engage foster care. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been wonderful. And I love the work that you all are doing. And so I'll help spread the word for you guys too.
Really appreciate
it's so amazing. I was like, did I put them on my website of resources? I'm pretty sure they did, but I'm going to go check and make sure.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we appreciate that and appreciate what you're giving back through this. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.